Okay. The Rules Committee will come to order. We are here for consideration of H-Con Res. 51, directing the President pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution to remove the United States Armed Forces from Libya, and an H-Res that has yet to be numbered, declaring that the President, 292, H-Res 292, declaring that the President shall not deploy, establish, or maintain the presence of units and members of the United States Armed Forces on the ground in Libya and for other purposes. Let me say at the outset, I had the privilege to preside downstairs over a little event that marked the graduation of the pages, and I observed as I was in the chair that the entire majority membership of the Page Board comprises of members of the Rules Committee, and so I wanted to thank Ms. Fox and Mr. Bishop for their stellar service there, and to say that we're happy to welcome Mr. Kucinich, and without objection, if you have a prepared statement, it will appear in the record in its entirety. And as Mr. Bishop comes in, I just complimented Mr. Bishop the fact that the Rules Committee is actually comprises of the entire majority leadership of the Page Board, and we wanted to congratulate you for your great work there. Mr. Kucinich.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Rules Committee, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to briefly address you on House Concurrent Resolution 51. This is a resolution that would require the President, pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution, to remove U.S. Armed Forces from Libya. I'm not here with any great enthusiasm, but I have to tell you that it is unmistakable that the President did not follow the Constitution in committing armed forces to conflict over Libya. That is not even debatable. Nor has the War Powers Act been followed. It's clear constitutional and statutory violations. Article 1, Section 8 makes it abundantly clear that the founders intended for that war power to be put in the hands of Congress. Congress made an exception in 1973 in passing the War Powers Act for exigent circumstances. Neither test of the founders nor the test of the statute has been met by the administration. This is very clear. The question is, will Congress stand up for the Constitution? The administration will not. He's my president. Saw him today. I respect him. But the Constitution is not a partisan issue. The Constitution requires us to take a very firm stand on this matter. And if we follow the Constitution, the path is very clear that we have to say you have to remove these assets that we have in the area. Now, what are they? Principally, the cruise missiles. 93% of all cruise missiles, Mr. Chairman, used in this conflict, the United States. 50% of planes, 50% of ships, and 66% of the personnel. With all due respect to NATO, they are a sock puppet of the United States in this conflict. This is the U.S., so it's our men and women potentially are put in harm's way without them even coming to Congress and ask our permission. And if we allow this to happen, we've set a precedent. For this president, we will hand him the ability to be able to commit us to action without having to come to Congress. So that's why I see this as a question of Article 1 authority written into the Constitution. We're first among equals, as opposed to Article 2, the executive branch. Clearly, the founders, the way this was written, did not intend for the president to have the power that he has actually appropriated to himself.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kucinich. Let me just say that obviously there is a high level of bipartisan concern and frustration, as you know very well, on this issue and the way it has been handled. And the Speaker has drafted, as you know, a resolution, which I'm hoping that this committee will make an order. It was precipitated, obviously, with the ripening of your privileged resolution that will be considered on the floor. And I know that much of what you raise as concern is, in fact, addressed in in the resolution that the Speaker has. I know it's not identical to yours, but it does create an opportunity for members to go on record making it clear their very, very strong dissatisfaction, to put it at the least, with what has taken place and the way this issue has been handled.
If I may,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I have no quarrel with the Speaker on this, because what he is doing is, in a sense, restating what Mr. Conyers did last week, where I think about 409 members of Congress agreed no ground troops.
Right.
This becomes important because NATO's talking about ground troops now. But mine addresses a much broader issue of our institution here, of Congress's role, and of whether or not we're setting a precedent, opening a door for this administration to go anywhere it wants without ever having to come to us. So what I intend to do, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote for the Speaker's resolution out of respect for the Speaker, and also I think we need to back him up in what he's trying to do. But I'm also going to urge my colleagues to vote for mine, so that we remind the President what the Constitution says in Article 1, Section 8, with respect to Congress's precedence on matters of war.
Good. Well, thank you for that. I have no questions. I mean, obviously, there's been a great deal of discussion and debate on this issue, and we're going to have, based on the recommendation that I'm going to make to this committee, a very full and rigorous debate with time controlled by leaders on both sides of the aisle. You will, under the recommendation that I'm going to have, control time. We'll have Ms. Ross-Lehtinen controlling time, I believe. So we'll have clearly an adequate opportunity for consideration of it. So, again, I have no questions. Ms. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank Mr. Kucinich for being here today and for the work he has done on the resolution that he introduced. I want to say that I share with the chairman his comment about there being bipartisan concern about the situation that we're in. And as Mr. Kucinich knows, he's had many on our side of the aisle talk with him and be very concerned about it. And I agree with you, Mr. Kucinich, that this is an Article 1 issue. It is something that has troubled me a lot. When I go out and speak to groups, particularly school groups, I point out the way the Constitution is divided. And I always point out to them the fact that the Congress is discussed in Article 1 is no accident. It is absolutely no accident that our founders wrote the Constitution the way they did, and we, those of us who've spent some time dealing with it, understand that. And I agree with you that the Constitution is not a partisan issue. It is up to us in this body to jealously guard the powers that were given to us, the delineated powers that were given to us by the founders. And so I think that debating this issue is very important, and hopefully coming to some resolution on the situation will occur as a result of this. And so, again, I want to thank you for the effort that you've put into this, and in many ways for helping to precipitate a decision by the Congress, at least by the House, on this issue. And I have no questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, do I understand you're going to make both of these in order? Is that the impression?
As I said, I mean, it's my intention to recommend to the committee that due to the what we'd call the ripening of the privilege resolution for Mr. Kucinich, we have that deadline before us, and so we are going to recommend that that the Speaker also have a substitute that is made in order.
So there will be two votes.
Yes.
Because, you know, no matter how everybody feels about Mr. Kucinich did this the correct way, and I haven't had time to read what the Speaker wrote. I just got it an hour ago, so I really don't know what's in it, Mr. Kucinich. I understand you're happy with it, but I don't know that I am, because it strikes me that on a matter of this gravity, you know this is an attempt to cut you out. You do realize that, right? I must tell you, this is a very strange proceeding for me.
If I could respond.
But as far as I know, if you want to, you're capable of getting up next week and doing the same thing over again.
If
correct?
I may respond to Mr.
Please
Slaughter.
do.
I understand the politics of what's going on, but I think that in this case, we can all rise above it, close ranks, support both resolutions, and thereby safeguard the position of the House on these matters. That's the way I look at it. I don't think that when I look at the principles that are stated behind what the Speaker's trying to do, I don't have any quarrel with that. But to say that that is an effective substitute for what I'm presenting, it's not. But again, you do them both together. They're compatible. They're not at odds with each other. That's the way I feel.
Mr. Kucinich, if you're happy, then why should I complain?
But wait, may I ask this,
Quite all
though?
right, yes.
So that I may, because you may know a little bit more about this process than I do, so I will direct a
No,
question.
this is a new process to me today.
If I could direct a question to the chair, and that is this in the nature of a substitute that we're talking about here?
No, if the gentlewoman would yield.
Certainly.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. No, this is not, it's not a substitute.
Okay.
It is, there would be a vote on the resolution from Speaker Boehner and a vote on the resolution that you have offered as
so
well.
if I may, Mr.
And by the way, let me just say, as the gentlewoman continues to yield, that this was made available online at 4:45 this afternoon. It's relatively short. It's 6 pages. I've read it several
We were at the
times.
White House learning expected, and then I
Right,
had
but
meetings after
Right,
that,
no, I
so
understand.
I'm
I know how
sorry,
busy
I
you
just
are,
didn't
but I
get
just want to say that it's 6 pages, and I'm happy to
Well, I'll
read it.
certainly read it before tomorrow. I'll be
Right,
happy to
so,
do that.
oh, it looks like, is this a copy of it there? You've got a copy of it right there in front of you.
Yes, I
And it
do.
is,
I-
as I said, relatively brief. Obviously, Mr. Kucinich has read it as well.
And he's happy with it.
Well, I want
Thank my friend
to
Bill.
say that I'm exceedingly grateful to the gentlelady for raising the questions about whether I'm familiar with it, since it just came out about an hour or so ago. But I am familiar with it. I don't see it in conflict.
Okay.
And that I intend to support it.
The only one issue is we have no troops on the ground, obviously, but we are there as part of a NATO operation, and I don't understand the legality of what breaking agreements or whatever we can do if we pull out all the American pieces of it. Are you you're content that that's okay? We can do that
Well, here's the
without
thing.
causing great.
Our alliances are important. That's true. What my resolution in effect states is that the Constitution has primacy over our alliances with NATO, over our position in the United Nations, over all of our agreements. That first there's a Constitution, and once we go through the portal of the Constitution, then all of our alliances have to be protected. And what I'm stating first and foremost is that we protect the Constitution. Now, with respect to NATO, and it is important to discuss NATO. Admiral Lockyer, who's the commander of the Joint Operations Command at Naples that's conducting the Libya campaign, was in a meeting at NATO on Sunday where he said, we're talking, that the next step is ground troops. Now, there is some urgency to Congress taking a position right now, and particularly with respect to the fact that NATO is saying they want to keep the combat operations going for 90 days. Nobody asked us. That's what I'm essentially saying. That's why it's important we pass both, and that's why I certainly wouldn't want to do anything to undermine Speaker Boehner's position on this, because I think that Mr. Conyers spoke last week. We voted already, about 409 votes. People voted for Mr. Conyers' resolution, which said no ground troops. I think that's right. And the other principles in Mr. Boehner's resolution are not at odds with, I think, the aspirations of many people in Congress who want more information and who want to put some restraint on the administration. Mine, though, relates to the constitutional question of you made a move, you made it without authorization, you've got to stop it and come back to square one.
No further questions from me.
This is usually when I give some flippant kind of remark or question here, and I'm not going to do this. This is a significant issue, and I appreciate the gentleman's efforts to work on this particular issue. And I'm taking this very seriously, and I thank you for your work so far. I don't have any questions. Oh, then now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Bishop. This is a serious issue, this is why this whole process troubles me. You filed your resolution a couple of weeks ago, and you've kind of gone through regular order, and people had a time to digest what it means. The Speaker, all of a sudden, I guess to try to cut you off, I mean, that's what this is about. If you read Politico today, it says that Boehner told the House Republican Conference in a closed Capitol meeting that he doesn't want to turn the floor over to Dennis Kucinich. So then he introduces this, and basically what this is, what I call this is covering your backside for Republicans, because it really doesn't do anything. It says a lot of things. It's critical of the president and all that kind of stuff, but it's an H-res. You have a con-res. Yours would have to go over to the Senate. This gets voted on if we pass in the House. It just ends in the House. And so all this, we're going to demand this to the president, demand this to the president. It really doesn't have much teeth, but it gives people cover so that they go back and say that we really, tried to, to get our to prevent ground troops in Libya, but in reality they haven't. And so I think we need to expose this for what it is. This is an attempt to get Republicans to vote for this so that they won't vote for you. I mean, that's the deal here. And I want people to understand that what Speaker Boehner has introduced, and yes, it may only be 6 pages, but you know what? Sometimes short bills, have great impact, or sometimes they have no impact. It's important for people to understand what the implications of all the words in here are. But to the best of my reading of this is that notwithstanding the swipes of the president and kind of a general statement that we don't want that we don't want ground troops in Libya, it doesn't carry the weight of law. It doesn't do anything. And so this is about giving people cover, and you need to know that because they are afraid that if they don't have this, you will pass, and they don't want that. So I would simply say, I mean, I don't like the process. I think that the war in Libya is a serious issue. It requires a little bit more thought than come up with a resolution at 4:45 and saying, here's our alternative. You take it. I mean, we should be doing this a little bit more thoughtfully, and we're not doing that. So I regret the process. I just want you to know what you're doing. I encourage you to read the Politico story that just came out, and again, I think those who vote for this and who vote against you need to know that what they're voting for really is something that doesn't mean very much, and so then you don't need to. If you want to comment,
may I respond?
Sure.
In my conversations on both sides of the aisle, and I have talked to members on both sides of the aisle, I think there's a pretty good understanding among members of the import of my resolution and of its focus on the constitutionality. And at the same time, the Speaker of the House has every right to be able to bring a resolution forward, and I don't see it in conflict, but to say that you vote for that instead of the other one, it doesn't really have the constitutional impact. And I think it's fair to say that, but I don't see it as an undermining, unless people would say, well, we met the Constitution. Here's the thing: if people vote for the speakers and say, well, we've done our constitutional duty, now I don't think a clear reading of that would come to that conclusion. I
think what I see this as is trivializing an important issue involving war, and so I wanted to say that for the record. I commend the gentleman for coming to the Rules Committee, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the sincerity of your resolution and the sincerity with which you have approached this issue and others like it as long as you've been in Congress. I just take issue with Mr. McGovern's statement. This isn't trivializing an important issue. This is you politicizing an important issue. And for someone to come up here and tell Mr. Kucinich, who has worked on these issues with integrity for as long as I've been reading his name in the newspaper, and I'm guessing that's as long as you've been serving in Congress, that he needs to know more about what's going on here because somebody's out to get him. This is a serious issue. And to try to translate into partisan terms like that is offensive to me. And let me just say that these are not equivalents. I've read the Speaker's resolution. It does not have the force of law as yours does. It does seek answers. Yours seeks action. And that's a very, very...
The gentleman would yield. If the gentleman would yield.
I'd be happy to
I
yield.
thank my friend for yielding. Let me just say that neither a CONRES or an HRES is signed by the President, so the force of law on either measure does not exist. They're both resolutions. And I thank my friend for yielding.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely different approaches from these. And in my conversations, also on both sides of the aisle, Mr. Kucinich, I couldn't agree with you more that folks are drawn to these two options for two very different reasons, and many folks are drawn to them both because of the two different paths that they take. This issue might not have become right,
Would the gentleman yield?
but for your efforts. In just one moment. But for your efforts. And I just want you to know, as someone who has great qualms about our involvement in Libya, how much I appreciate you bringing this issue to the forefront and forcing us all to focus on it when perhaps we might not have otherwise. I'd be happy to yield to my friend from Massachusetts.
I just want to state for the record that the War Powers Act states that a concurrent resolution is what is needed to justify the removal of the troops. So to say that a concurrent resolution, when it comes to the War Powers Act, is equal to an HRES, I think is just wrong.
The gentleman would yield.
You're absolutely right, Mr. McGovern. And I said exactly the opposite, that they are in no way qualitatively equal.
If the gentleman would yield,
absolutely,
I thank my friend for yielding. And let me just say that obviously there are many, many constitutional questions about the War Powers Act itself, and there are many constitutional lawyers who have made a determination of the unconstitutionality of it. I thank my friend for yielding.
And I'll just conclude, Mr. Chairman, by saying I hope we can all learn something from the way that Mr. Kucinich has approached an issue of the gravity that Mr. Bishop has laid out. It is not a political issue. It's absolutely a constitutional issue. It's absolutely an American issue. It's an issue for every American who has a family member or a member of their community serving there, and it's an issue about how we're going to conduct ourselves as a nation going forward. And I, again, appreciate the integrity with which you have conducted your entire effort.
Let's ask any member to respond. Do we all agree that Congress has the power to declare war? Is everybody agreed on that, or from the standpoint of the Constitution? That being said, then over the course of many years reviewing how the United States got itself in a variety of theaters of war, what happens, it seems, is that more and more, over the course of years, we relinquish more and more powers of the legislative branch of government to the executive branch of government. When it comes to this particular matter, and Mr. Kucinich, first let me take on Mr. Woodall. I echo Mr. McGovern's sentiments. When I first heard about this, I was in my car headed home, and they told me we were going to have a meeting, and it had been suspicioned, and Mr. Sessions yesterday made it clear that we may very well have to come back. So the rumbling, let's don't play like we don't hear each other's signals. The rumblings around here were that the Republican conference was having difficulties with this particular matter, and toward that end, that a resolution of it would be that the Speaker would offer what now is HRES 292. Then we had this emergency meeting called, and that's what I do. I'm on the Rules Committee, so I turned around and came back. But Mr. Woodall, I think you would think that when a partisan action has taken place on the majority side, which is its prerogative, that it's not unwarranted to point out that the politicization had already occurred. Mr. Kucinich followed regular order. And in following regular order, he gets to the point where his specially designated request, as is the power of any member here, I might add, has reached its ripeness. And so its controversy carries with it the weight of all of us having to make a decision regarding the war powers. Dennis's two-page H. Conres 51 begins simply by saying, pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution, and he goes on without reading it all, the Speaker's resolution says absolutely nothing about the War Powers Act, but it gives cover for Democrats and Republicans that don't want to get to the gravamen of the issue that Mr. Kucinich is raising, and that's in the final analysis, whether or not we have a power to declare war, whether it's Libya or whether it was in Grenada, whether it was in Bosnia under Clinton. I know that Louise and David and I have heard this argument. We have colleagues, Jim as well, we have colleagues that went to court regarding this, and the Supreme Court repeatedly has ducked this issue, and I understand that, leaving it in our power. So either we believe in the Constitution, you come up here and you claim that you're strict constructionists until such time as it becomes necessary to become activists, as we have now activist judges all over this country that are conservative, that are shooting down every imaginable kind of right of individuals, and yet in another era, it was strict construction. Now, somewhere along the line, we are either going to fish or cut bait. I don't agree with you, Dennis, about supporting the Speaker's resolution and that there is no distinction. And why isn't there a distinction in you asking about war powers and him coming forward, giving the President a lot of instructions that the President, I might add, needs to undertake, as you may have pointed out? But can you tell me that the gravamen of this is as serious as your resolution on war powers?
If I may respond.
Yeah.
First of all, the same passionate defense of the Constitution that you just made is something that I feel that animates my being involved in this. I just want to say that. That's number one. Number two, what I said, if I said no distinction, then I misspoke. What I think I said, though, is that I didn't see what the Speaker was doing. The substance of it was in conflict with what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm saying. Now, with respect to following the rules, here I am. I mean, I try to have to follow the rules, and the Speaker has an ability to do some things that an ordinary member just can't do. And so, but I respect that. It's just the way it is. I would still appeal to all of my colleagues on both sides here. If we all stay focused on the higher issue here, which is the constitutionally mandated war power that Mr. Hastings, you're absolutely right, we've let it slip away over the years. This is a moment when we can, on behalf of the people of the United States, come back, bring some movement back, reset the pointer of the War Powers Act. And if in some way, at the end of the day tomorrow, if the votes work out that way, we will have really accomplished something on both sides of the aisle. What I'm trying to do, obviously, and I'm very sensitive about this moment, is I've been working for days trying to see if I could get people on both sides of the aisle to come to concurrence on this. And obviously, what I don't want to do, notwithstanding the arguments that are being presented here, I don't want to be in a position where I fracture coalitions I've been trying to build.
Well, I understand that, and reclaiming my time, I understand exactly what you're saying, and for the sake of comity, it makes sense. But you just said that if you said it was a distinction, you misspoke, and I accept that you may not have said that. But I disagree with you further, that your resolution is not in conflict with the Speaker's resolution. The Speaker's resolution doesn't get to the issue of the day, and that is whether or not the War Powers Act applies when war is undertaken by the United States. And it's just that simple. And whether you understand it or not, what Jim and I are saying to you, and both of us can predict for you, that on tomorrow when we vote, some few people on both sides of the aisle that may have voted for your resolution have cover by the Speaker's resolution. And, sir, your resolution is not going to receive as many votes as it would have standing alone, having gone through the ordinary and regular process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kucinich, with all that's been said, and I truly do appreciate the stance that you're taking as in regards to Libya, what stops the President from doing this again next week?
Doing what, sir?
Doing just what he did with Libya. What stops him from going in and providing military force against any other country?
Well, if this resolution passes, if House Concurrent Resolution 51 passes, the President will have been mightily informed by the Congress that Congress has reclaimed its constitutional authority under the War Powers Act. That's why House Concurrent Resolution 51 is so important, because actually it is a firm insistence on the constitutional prerogative of Congress under Article 1, Section 8. So what stops any president from moving forward is the precedent that is set by the House with a congressional action that is very clear as to the War Powers Act and as to the constitutional intent under Article 1, Section 8. It's just no president would dare fly in the face of this concurrent resolution if it passes. Wouldn't dare.
It just seems that we've given the President unparalleled power, the ability, because it is a broad and I believe gray areas in regards that allows him to do the things he's done to this point in regards to committing American forces. I worry, just like you do, reference to what was said by a particular general in regards to ground forces. I absolutely have a concern that as these things spiral out of control, that he will commit ground forces without coming back to Congress to do just that. I worry that, we have relationships with those within NATO, and we certainly don't want to damage them because they've been there to back us up, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so you don't necessarily want to create a problem with NATO itself, but I am truly concerned that we're going to wind up committing ourselves well past the ability of where we are today, the point we are today in regards to command and control, and we're going to wind up getting more troops put in harm's way, and Congress, once again, has not been brought up to speed, nor asked for the consent and the will of the people to do exactly what he wants to do. So I appreciate your bill and the intent of your bill. I really do. Thank you.
Mr. Bullis.
Thank you, Mr. Kucinich. I'm looking at your HCON 51. So it states that Congress directs the President to remove the United States Armed Forces from Libya with the time frame. I guess I would start out by saying, are the U.S. Armed Forces in Libya?
Our assets have, the answer to that is yes. 93% of our cruise missiles, that cruise missiles have been used, have come from the United States. 50% of the ships, 50% of the planes, 66% of personnel have been connected with, within NATO, have been connected with the U.S. operations, spending close to $700 million. We pay 25% of NATO's military bills. So the answer is that we're there.
It's complicated because remove would tend to insinuate that there is something there to be removed. Clearly, they are active in missions that occur over Libya or in Libya, but they are not currently based in Libya. To the best of my knowledge, there's no ground troops in Libya or anything that at any given time would be removed, if I'm not mistaken.
If I may respond.
Yes.
The language relates to not sending more cruise missiles, not getting our ships out of the area, not sending planes in the air. It's clearly intended. The denotation of it would mean you take them out of harm's way. You're not in Libya anymore.
So it goes further than the Speaker's resolution, which opposes ground troops.
I mean, substantively, of course it does, because this really relates to stopping our presence as part of the action in Libya, because it was never authorized by the Constitution. That's why. But yes, to your answer, does it take us out? Yes, it does. Absolutely, no question about it.
Okay, I yield back.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Webster. Mr. Reed.
Just briefly, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman. This is a very tough issue, and I appreciate Mr. Kucinich coming up here with this resolution, and I'm very troubled that our president has put us in this position by not coming forward to Congress and clearly articulating a mission and clearly getting approval from us in such a serious matter as of war. So I'm very troubled by what the action is. I'm concerned about the resolution of 15 days of pulling back military operations from a logistical point of view, and the risk that puts to real lives that are endangered by this action if we do that. So I'm wrestling with this, but Mr. Kucinich, I think I applaud your effort and your work on bringing this issue here and to the floor. I think we spoke as a body, as you referenced in your comments a week ago, in a clear voice that Congress does not have the appetite or nor seems to be supporting our efforts in Libya with the vote that was held last week. So I just wanted to make my thoughts put on the record, and hopefully we can move forward on this. I would yield.
Your statement was that you feel that it's unfortunate that the president has put us in this position. The simple fact of the matter is that a few presidents, and mine in your lifetime, have come here to this body that has the constitutional power to declare war and ask for it. I was here when Bosnia occurred. I was here when Iraq occurred. I was here when we sent troops to Haiti. And I could go on and on and on in history. And so it isn't just Obama. It's what I said earlier. It is this body's willingness, not only in this arena but in others as well, to allow the executive to continue with powers that are the legislative prerogatives. And I don't understand it. I never have, and I probably never will.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes.
I thank my friend for yielding. And let me just say that my friend from Fort Lauderdale is correct when he used the term declaration of war. But in most of those cases, you mentioned Bosnia and Iraq, we know that the first effort to liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein, that the president came to the Congress and asked for resolutions in support. No, resolutions in support of the effort that took place there, in some instances before and some after. And so let me just, yes, I said not a declaration of war. I said not a declaration of war, but as the gentleman knows, in this instance with President Obama, that has not been the case, as has been the case with other presidents. And I thank my friend for yielding.
And reclaiming my time, and I would just say, I've come here as a new member of this body, and I always look to the future. And I'm just very troubled by what has occurred here in Libya, and hopefully we continue to learn and we move forward and look to the future and resolve these issues appropriately and consistent with what our founding fathers put forth in the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kucinich, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate everyone has demonstrated respect for your dedication, your commitment to the Constitution, and your effort here. And we look forward to making in order an opportunity for a rigorous and free-flowing debate on the floor tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And members of the committee, Thank you for your thoughtful reflection. This is something that I know members are going into very deeply, and you know, I appreciate it's an honor to serve with all of you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. He's not listed as a witness, but Mr. Garrett has asked me if he could be heard on the Speaker's resolution, and we'd like to recognize gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Garrett. And as always, if you have any prepared remarks, they will, without objection, appear in the record in entirety, and we would welcome your summary.
And I thank the chairman for permitting me to speak briefly with regard to Speaker Boehner's resolution. I also appreciate thoughtfulness has been with regard to Mr. Kucinich's resolution as well, and I applaud him for his dedication to bringing this issue to the fore. I, too, have just seen the Speaker's resolution. I guess it was when we were in conference about an hour or so ago. And at that point raised some issues or questions about it. Along the lines of the gentleman from Utah was saying before, this is perhaps the most profound issue that Congress has to grapple with. And if you know the history of the debates of the Constitution, you know this was up in one of the first or second issues, the most amount of time and deliberation went into as far as formulating the powers as written in the Constitution. So the decision to send men and women into battle is that significant, and so that is, I appreciate that the Speaker Boehner has presented this resolution. The amendments, what I suggest to the committee, I'm not sure of the procedure at this point, but just to suggest to you consider with regard to Speaker Boehner's resolution are just a couple. The first is to address the issue of the constitutionality, and as long as Mr. Hastings would say, this is where it rests, and to make it adamantly clear in his resolution that it rests right here. Not across the street in the judiciary, not across the street in the White House, but it rests right here. Following that, to make it abundantly clear with regard to the War Powers Act, that, as the chairman has already said, this president, perhaps like, as Mr. Hastings was saying, other presidents, but all we're dealing with is right now, is this president has not followed the black letter law, if you will, of the War Powers Act, and therefore it is fairly clear that, from my reading, that he is in violation of the War Powers Act. That's point one. The second aspect of it is to do this. While I commend the Speaker on what he is attempting to do in the resolution to require more information from the White House, I'm also mindful of the fact that the White House has offered that information, and I know we just had a briefing on it the other day, and that we had the opportunity, if you had questions, to ask the White House. What we have not received from the White House is, as the chairman said, a specific request for authorization. That's another point. And also is what the resolution before us that Mr. Boehner has done fails to give us, I'll call, an end game. It asks for a report, it asks for more information, and then basically leaves it there. What I suggest is, let's not so much focus on looking for that information or the report. Let's, A, direct the White House to request an authorization for Congress for the action that it's about to continue to take, and do so within 14 days. And then one of two things would happen. If the White House complies and does what he should be doing within the War Powers Act, then this House would proceed under the expedited procedures as outlined in the War Powers Act in response to the President's request for authorization. However, if the President does not comply within the 14 period of days, then it will be set forth in here that the President is acting outside of the area of the war powers, and Congress then would terminate and prohibit any funds from going forward to be used for the military engagement. So basically we're setting out both parameters. Hopefully the White House would adhere to the first one and allow for a request to come in the next 2 weeks. Congress, in its appropriate deliberation at that point in time, can discuss it, debate it as you are doing here, but in the appropriate committees, and respond back under the expedited procedures.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garrett. You always approach issues in a very thoughtful and deliberative way, and we do appreciate that. One point that I will make to all the committee members and on the floor tomorrow, as we approach this debate, it's important to note that what we're doing here is by no means the end of the debate. In less than 2 weeks, in fact, in 12 days, the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee is going to be deliberating and proceeding with its work on the funding question. And as we all know, as the Federalist points out, the term power of the purse is used for us. In your second item, you have talked about the issue of funding, and so it is very apparent that as we seriously look at and address this issue, it will be a very important part of consideration of the Defense Appropriations Bill, which we obviously deal with scheduling challenges. It's one of the things that this committee spends time working on. But within the next 30 days, we hope to have on the floor the Defense Appropriations Bill. But as I said, members of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee and the Full Appropriations Committee will, within literally a matter of days, be continuing to address these questions. As I say, I know this will be a very important part of it.
Would the gentleman
Yes,
yield
surely.
on that? And I appreciate that. My question would be as to the not of the timing of when that would come before for the House, but where the implementation. We're talking about the defense appropriations for 2012,
Right.
which go into effect on October 1st.
Right.
And I think some people are concerned to say not what happens in 2012, but what happens in June 12th and July 12th
Absolutely.
and August 12th.
No, no.
So
I understand that, but the only point that I'm making is that this is an issue which is not going to by any means come to an end
Right.
tomorrow when we have this debate. There will continue to be discussion, and I think that even though we're looking at the next fiscal year's appropriations bill, that signals will be sent by votes that are cast in the defense appropriations measures that will be coming before us, we hope, in a matter of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.
Thanks.
Mr. Garrett, I continue to be really concerned about this one issue, and you may not have the answer. And
I'll make something up.
I'm sorry that I don't, but I just have not delved into this enough. But I think that we need to know it before we do anything tomorrow, and that is the War Powers Act obviously discusses the fact that the United States President unilaterally goes into war. I'm not sure how we do this as far as the United States doing this as a part of NATO, although realistically we know NATO is the United States. It was sanctioned by the United Nations. To my knowledge, we've never said before when we were doing a NATO concern of any sort that we don't want to play this one and we're out.
Can I answer
Yes,
that?
I would appreciate an answer to that. I don't think...
In the bylaws or constitution of NATO, their requirements of any member nation to engage in military action specifically sets forth that they are constrained by the respective constitutions of those states or those countries. So before NATO can look to us to be beholden to them for any expenditures, they would have to look to our constitution, which take precedence over it, and that's within the confines of NATO, and that's within therefore the confines of the treaty that the Senate ratified with regard to NATO. So even though there may have been a promise to NATO, or there may have been an engagement, what have you, it would still come back, and as Mr. Hastings might concur, that the Constitution then would be paramount in that regard, because as set forth.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
I want to thank you for coming here,
Sure.
and I think you have an interesting amendment, which I hope is made in order. And again, I think when you bring legislation dealing with war to the House floor, I think we need to have a more deliberative process to get us to the point that we're at now.
Sure.
And perhaps in that process, your language might have been adopted, because I don't think that there are too many people around here, at least on this committee, who would necessarily disagree with what you're requesting here. So in any event, I thank you for taking the time to be here.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your consideration.
That will conclude the hearing for consideration of the two resolutions, and the chair will be in receipt of a motion. Gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee grant one rule for consideration of both HRES 292, declaring that the President shall not deploy, establish, or maintain the presence of units and members of the United States Armed Forces on the ground in Libya and for other purposes, and H. Conres 51, directing the President, pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution, to remove the United States Armed Forces from Libya. The rule provides for consideration of HRS 292, declaring that the President shall not deploy, establish, or maintain the presence of units and members of the United States Armed Forces on the ground in Libya and for other purposes under a closed process. The rule provides 1 hour of debate with 40 minutes equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and 20 minutes equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Armed Services. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the resolution. The rule provides that the resolution shall be considered as read. Section 2 of the rule provides for consideration of H. Res. 51, directing the President, pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution, to remove the United States Armed Forces from Libya under a closed process. The rule provides for 1 hour debate on the resolution with 30 minutes controlled by Representative Ross Layton of Florida or her designee, and 30 minutes controlled by Representative Kucinich of Ohio or his designee. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the resolution. Finally, the rule provides that the resolution shall be considered as read.
You've heard the motion of the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community. Any discussion or amendment? Mr. McGovern, surely. Yes.
What is the total amount of debate on this?
Well, let's see. If we got it added up, it's a couple of hours. Is that about right? Yeah. So it'll be a total of 3 hours if you include the hour of debate that we will have under the stellar leadership of Mr. Scott when we proceed with management of this. It is Mr. Scott managing this, right? He's looking around like he didn't know that.
So then,
And Mr. Hastings.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Then when we get past the rule,
Right. We'll have 2 hours of debate.
2 hours
when we
of
move
debate.
beyond the bill, beyond the rule,
okay.
debate by the leaders of the
40
two
minutes,
committees,
40
Foreign
minutes on
Affairs, and Armed
292.
Services, and then the debate that Mr. Kucinich will have and Ms.
All
Ross
right.
Layton. Mr. Polis.
An amendment to Section 2 to replace the 30 minutes controlled by Representative Ross Layton with 20 minutes and add in 10 minutes controlled by Mr. Burton of Indiana.
Did you want to say something to me?
If I can speak.
Let me just respond. The gentleman's offered the amendment and respond by saying that I know that Ms. Ross Layton is looking forward to being very generous in her yielding of time. I know that Mr. Berman is going to be part of that, and I suspect Mr. Burton will be recognized as well. And obviously, there's always a challenge when it comes to dividing time for debate because we seek to ensure that every member who wants to participate has an opportunity to participate. And I do know that she, as the chairwoman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, is going to be very diligent in her quest to do that.
I'll withdraw my amendment.
Thank you. Any further discussion or amendment? If not, the vote occurs on the motion of the gentlewoman. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Pay the chair. The ayes have it. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Sessions. Ms. Fox. Aye. Ms. Fox, aye. Mr. Bishop. Mr. Bishop, aye. Mr. Woodall. Aye. Mr. Woodall, aye. Mr. Nugent. Aye. Mr. Nugent, aye. Mr. Scott. Aye. Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. Webster. Aye. Mr. Webster, aye. Mr. Reed. Aye. Mr. Reed, aye. Ms. Slaughter. Ms. Slaughter, no. Mr. McGovern. Mr. McGovern, no. Mr. Hastings. Mr. Hastings, no. Mr. Polis. No. Mr. Polis, no. Mr. Chairman.
Aye. And the clerk report the total.
8 yeas, 4 nays.
And the motion is agreed to and will be managed, as I've already said, the gentleman from North Charleston, Mr. Scott, and gentleman from Worcester. So thank you all very much, and this will be our last meeting. Hope everyone has a great week and look forward to an interesting debate tomorrow. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.